I chose integrity, but when I think about integrity, it's rooted in truth, equity, and community, because if you do right by people, you'll be able to advocate for them in that way.
So I want to say thank you all for having us on this panel. I feel very blessed to be on a panel with such amazing women. And so being visible on purpose for me means being a great role model and representing our community in the best light. And so as someone who holds the title that I hold, being the first Haitian-American, first Black woman in that seat, I want to make sure that little Black and brown girls feel that they can aspire to be me one day. So what I try to do very often is create opportunities for these individuals to shadow me, to intern with me, and also share my story on social media, be as relatable as possible so individuals feel like this goal is attainable. So with that being said, I think it's super important when we are in these roles and these positions that we don't forget about who's watching us, who is trying to aspire to be like us, and making sure that we're a positive role model.
I love that.
Productive few weeks in our city. I enjoyed connecting with many of you at the Blarney Bash and getting out for the waterway cleanup with my colleague, Commissioner Sarah. I also had the opportunity to tour CTS engines, and that facility is just remarkable and amazing. I'm just at awe with all the equipment that's able to fit into that space. So if I haven't formally welcomed you, welcome to our community. They're one of our newest businesses here in our city, and we're just so happy to have them.
On the morning of April 1st, 2026, the phones at Coral Springs City Hall started ringing. Nobody picked up on the other end. They kept trying, her colleagues, her staff, the people who depended on her showing up. City Commission meetings don't run themselves, and Nancy Metayer Bowen had never once been the kind of person who just didn't show up. So when her seat was empty, when her messages went unanswered again and again, the unease in that building started to grow into something heavier, something nobody wanted to name out loud. One city staffer finally did what no one else had done. They pulled out their phone and texted her husband. He replied, but something was off. The words came back too calm, too unbothered. For a man whose wife had missed 2 meetings and wasn't answering anyone, his texts read like he had no idea why anyone would be worried. And the moment that staffer read his response, they called the police. Not because they had proof, just because something felt deeply, terribly wrong. Officers arrived at the home on Northwest 127th Avenue for a welfare check. They knocked. No answer. No cars in the driveway. No movement behind the windows. Hours later, a detective walked the perimeter. That's when they noticed it damage to the exterior of the home. Outward, explosive damage. The kind consistent with a weapon fired from inside. They called in SWAT. When the team finally forced their way through that door, they found her upstairs, in the bedroom she shared with her husband, her body wrapped in a comforter, placed inside black garbage bags, like she was something to be hidden, something to be disposed of. Nancy Metayer Bowen was 38 years old. She was the vice mayor of Coral Springs, the first Black woman and first Haitian-American ever elected to the city commission, a scientist, an environmentalist, a daughter of Haitian immigrants who had built something extraordinary in a country her parents crossed oceans to reach. She was days away from announcing she was running for Congress. And the man who allegedly put her there, wrapped her in garbage bags and left her, was her husband of just over 3 years. The same man who slept downstairs that night while she lay dead above him. The same man whose Instagram bio read, God, husband, armed. If you're into real true crime stories that dig deep into the facts and uncover the darkness behind them, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Crime Case Confidential brings you new cases every single week, stories that need to be told, victims who deserve justice, and truth that can't be ignored.
Our staff, our teachers, and everyone who made this event special, especially you, Sandra. You have made these individuals feel so welcome and appreciated. I am lost of words. You all have created such a beautiful space. So thank you for all that you all continue to do to make our most vulnerable communities feel so special. This was really such a fun.
Thank you.
And who was our colleague, that was our battle buddy. She had such a good heart. She truly cared about people. Even when people were saying some of the most horrible things about her and us, she still cared, rolled up her sleeves, went to every event that she could go to because she truly cared about people and making sure people had a relationship with their elected officials. And for anyone that knows me, they know that I can tend to be a little like an attack dog, and I was very protective of her. I would not let people mistreat her or talk to her any kind of way just because she decided to serve the people. And so my heart is extremely heavy. My soul is heavy. My heart is broken. We just normal people. And to have to go home and deal with things, that's what we do. We come back out every single day and we work for the people. Our commission is incomplete. Our commission is incomplete. And we know that time is going to move and time is going to do its thing. But for us that are in this city, in the city hall, that have been touched or impacted by Vice Mayor Nancy Metayer Bowen, that is something, that is a loss that is going to take a lot of time to deal with. To the media, thank you for being here, but I am going to ask you one simple request. Do not turn this into a circus. Do not barrage our office trying to get answers. You have been given instructions. Please follow them. We are truly grieving right now. Our city will come together as we always do. Nancy, I loved you. You're my big sister. I was always happy to see you at all the events we went to together. I just saw you this past Saturday. Didn't think that would be the last time I got to talk to you. So I'll say to everyone here, go home, hug your loved ones, tell them you love them, be close to them. I am praying for her family, who's dealing with yet another unimaginable tragedy. So please keep them in your prayers as well.
To understand who Nancy Metayer Bowen was, you have to go back to the beginning, not to City Hall, not to the speeches or the awards or the headlines. You have to go back to a family that crossed oceans to give their children something better. In the early 1980s, two young Haitians made their way to South Florida. Nancy's father came by boat from Ghana. Her mother arrived on a student visa from Port-au-Prince. They settled in the Fort Lauderdale area of Broward County, and they built a life there the way so many immigrants do, quietly, steadily, brick by brick. They didn't arrive with connections or money or political clout. They arrived with determination, and they poured every drop of it into their children. In 1997, the family moved to Coral Springs. Nancy was around 10 years old, and that city, that suburb with its wide roads and quiet neighborhoods, would become the place she called home for the rest of her life. She was born into a foundation of sacrifice. First-generation American, Haitian blood, American soil, and from the very beginning she carried both with pride. She went to local schools in Coral Springs. She watched her parents work. She absorbed the lesson they never had to say out loud, that you represent more than yourself. That when people who look like you are watching, you carry them with you too. She took that lesson seriously. After high school, Nancy enrolled at Florida A&M University, a historically black college in Tallahassee. She studied environmental science, regulation, and policy. Then she went further. She earned a Master of Health Science in Environmental Health Sciences from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, one of the most respected institutions in the world. This was not a woman who did things halfway. This was a woman who built her credentials like someone who knew exactly what she was preparing for. And she used them. Before she ever ran for office, Nancy spent years in the field. She worked on Haiti relief efforts. She managed environmental justice programs across Florida. She responded to hurricanes Irma, Michael, Dorian, working with the Broward County Soil and Water Conservation District to help communities recover from disaster. She won a United Nations Clean Water Advocacy Award. She was recognized by the Haitian-American Chamber of Commerce as one of their top 20 under 40. She wasn't collecting accolades, she was doing the work. In 2020, she ran for a seat on the Coral Springs City Commission. Nobody had ever seen a black woman, a Haitian-American woman, do what she was about to do. She won. And with that win, she made history, becoming the first black woman and first Haitian-American ever elected to that commission. 4 years later, in 2024, she ran again. Nobody even bothered to oppose her. She won her second term unopposed. People who knew Nancy described her the same way over and over. Joyful, brilliant, present. She loved music. She loved to dance. She had an easy laugh that filled whatever room she walked into. A former supervisor once said her resume was stellar, that she was almost too good to be true. A friend and longtime collaborator said she was the kind of person who called you and asked, "What are you working on? Can I help? What can I bring?" That was Nancy, always looking for a way to contribute, always pulling others up with her. She stood in the middle of community conflicts nobody else wanted to touch. When a Coral Springs hotel abruptly canceled a Muslim organization's annual conference, caving to pressure and protest calls, Nancy placed herself between both sides. She asked the hard questions. She listened. She pushed back. She was not Muslim, but she felt the injustice as if it were her own. The situation grew so tense that a police detail was assigned to protect her. The community remembered that. By 2024, her reach had expanded well beyond Coral Springs. President Biden and later Vice President Kamala Harris tapped her to serve as Florida's Caribbean Vote Director during the presidential campaign. She led caravans departing from Little Haiti. She organized phone banks. She mobilized a community that had long been overlooked. Then, in March 2025, the Florida Democratic Party named her vice chair of Haitian-American voter engagement. She was 37 years old, and she was just getting started. But even as her career soared, her personal life was carrying something very heavy. In December 2025, just 4 months before her own death, Nancy buried her younger brother. Donovan Joshua Lee Metayer was 26 years old. He had been a senior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, in February 2018, the day a gunman walked into that school and killed 17 people. Donovan survived the shooting, but survival didn't mean healing. In the months and years that followed, his family watched him change. The vibrant, brilliant young man they knew began to withdraw. Depression set in. Then came the diagnosis, schizophrenia. He was hospitalized multiple times. He fought hard, but the weight of what he had witnessed never fully lifted. On December 15, 2025, Donovan died by suicide. He was the youngest child of the family, Nancy's baby brother. She announced his death on Facebook herself, with words that broke people's hearts. She called him her baby brother. She said she was navigating grief and wasn't in a space to carry conversations. She created a mental health fund in his name, because even in the middle of the worst pain of her life, her instinct was still to turn suffering into something that could help someone else. She was still grieving him when she died. That is who Nancy Metayer Bowen was, a daughter of immigrants who became a trailblazer, a scientist who became a public servant, a sister who carried loss without letting it stop her, a woman who gave everything to her community, and who, in the end, was taken by the one person she should have been safest with. Tuesday, March 31st, 2026 started like any other evening in the home on Northwest 127th Avenue. Stephen Bowen spoke to his parents in the afternoon. He told them he'd had a panic attack at work. He said he was going to talk to Nancy about it when he got home. His parents had no reason to worry. They didn't know of any serious problems between the couple. As far as they could tell, it was just a husband and wife with something to work through. A hard conversation, maybe, not a final one. What happened inside that house that night, what was said, what escalated, what broke, is something only Stephen Bowen knows. What the evidence tells us is this. At some point on the night of March 31st, he picked up a shotgun. He went upstairs to the bedroom he shared with his wife, and he shot Nancy Metayer Bowen 3 times. Then he went downstairs, and he slept. That detail is not a rumor. It is not speculation. It comes from his own words, relayed to investigators by the person he confessed to. He shot his wife 3 times with a shotgun in their bedroom, and then he went downstairs and slept through the night in the same house. Let that settle for a moment. There is something particularly disturbing about what happened next, not the violence, but the composure. Because the next morning, Stephen Bowen did not call for help. He did not call 911. He did not reach out to her family or his own. Instead, he wrapped her in a comforter, a garbage bag pulled around her feet. He left her in the bed where he had shot her, and then he walked out of the house. He drove away. Meanwhile, across town, the people who loved Nancy were beginning to feel the first tremors of something wrong. That Wednesday morning, a city staff member received a text from Nancy's phone at 8 a.m. It had a subject line. It said, "Discussion items." It was the kind of text she might have scheduled the night before, routine, professional, the kind of message a dedicated public servant sends ahead of a busy day. But after that text, nothing. No responses. No calls returned. Her phone just went quiet. She missed her first meeting, the 8:30 charter school board session. Then her second, the 9 a.m. city commission meeting. The people waiting in those rooms knew immediately that something was off. This was not a woman who disappeared. This was not a woman who forgot. And one of the meetings she failed to appear for was attended by Coral Springs Police Chief Brad Mock himself. City staff began reaching out. Phones rang. Messages went unanswered. Finally, the staff member texted her husband directly, asking if Nancy could call in. Stephen Bowen replied. He said he had texted her, that she wasn't picking up. Then he added something that, in hindsight, reads like ice water. Where is she? Her car is not at home. He knew exactly where she was. She was upstairs. In the bed he had walked out of just hours before. A neighbor had seen her outside the night before, walking her dog around midnight. That was the last time anyone outside that house saw Nancy Metayer Bowen alive. Officers arrived at the home around 10 in the morning for a welfare check. No cars in the driveway. No answer at the door. No sign of movement inside. For the next 2 hours, investigators worked the case as a missing persons situation, a worrying one, but not yet a crime scene. Then a detective walked the perimeter of the house. On the second floor of the exterior north side, he noticed something that stopped him. 2 defects in the structure. Outward, explosive damage, the kind consistent with force originating from inside the building. The kind consistent with projectiles. The kind consistent with a shotgun being fired from within a room. Everything changed. At approximately 1:39 in the afternoon, law enforcement spotted Stephen Bowen's black Ford F-150 in a parking lot in Plantation. Officers watched him from a distance, and what they saw was not a grieving husband searching for his missing wife. It was a man conducting a transaction. He handed another man, later identified as Leslie Washington Jr., a bag, the kind of bag consistent with a firearm-carrying case. He also handed over boxes of ammunition. Washington took the bag into his apartment. He came out without it. Investigators would later recover a shotgun from that location. At around 1:50 in the afternoon, something else was happening across town. Stephen Bowen's uncle, Owen Small, called 911. Stephen had shown up at his door that morning. He had told his uncle he had done something to his wife, that she was not alive. His uncle had pressed him, asked him directly, point blank, why, and Stephen gave him an answer. He said he couldn't take it anymore. With that phone call, investigators had enough. A SWAT team was dispatched to the house on Northwest 127th Avenue. They forced their way through a rear sliding glass door. They moved through the ground floor. They went upstairs. And they found her. Nancy Metayer Bowen was in her bed. In the second-floor master bedroom she shared with her husband of 3 years, her body wrapped in a comforter, a garbage bag pulled around her feet, 3 spent shotgun shells still there, wrapped inside the blankets beside her. A preliminary examination revealed a gunshot wound to her left shoulder, and on the same bed, investigators found something they hadn't expected: a pillow with burn marks on it, and string, fashioned according to the affidavit as if it had been used as a makeshift silencer. He had thought about this. At 2:24 in the afternoon, Nancy Metayer Bowen was declared dead at the scene. 11 minutes later, at 2:35, officers arrested Stephen Bowen in Plantation at an apartment complex called Landmark Towers. A cell phone video captured the moment. A man in a long-sleeved shirt, athletic shorts and sneakers, hands behind his back. As officers closed in, Leslie Washington Jr. heard him say 6 words. "Oh shit, they're here for me." Not panic about his wife, not grief, not shock. Just the sound of a plan falling apart. Nancy Metayer Bowen was 38 years old. The following day, Thursday, April 2nd, was supposed to be the day she announced she was running for Congress. She never got there.
The tragic discovery all came after the vice mayor failed to appear to a commission meeting Wednesday. Police said after text messages were made to her husband by the commission manager as to where she may be, investigators said Bowen responded, texted her. She's not picking up. Where is she? Her car is not at home. Investigators said Bowen confessed to his uncle that he shot his wife because he couldn't take it anymore. His uncle went to investigators who then made their way inside of the vice mayor's home. It's there she was found wrapped in a blanket and trash bags after being shot and killed.
911, what is your emergency?
I'm calling to report a possible crime.
The urgency escalated on voices in those 911 calls.
Reason
Tell
to
them
break
to
down the
break
door.
down the door and go down, whatever means.
Ma'am, I understand that we're worried about her and we're trying to find her, but we can't just break down the door. We have to have a reason.
Nancy's lifeless body was found inside of her home, wrapped in a blanket and garbage bags. Detectives believe Nancy's husband used a rifle to shoot his spouse 3 times on the night before she was discovered, and then he slept downstairs afterwards, a crime Bowen allegedly admitted to his own uncle.
Okay. My nephew, her husband, came to my house this morning and told me that he did something to her.
Okay, her
I said,
husband?
"Is he alive?" He said no.
I don't know what's going on.
About a dozen miles away in Plantation, cell phone video shows law enforcement swarming an apartment complex, where sources tell Local 10 they caught up with the vice mayor's husband and took him into custody.
From Coral Springs to here, in this particular area, is insane.
Witnesses only learned about the circumstances in the moments after the police presence. The entire parking lot was blocked off for quite some time as detectives worked the area. Several vehicles were then towed away, potentially tied to the investigation.
We just heard a big bang. And I said, oh my God, is that gunshots? We looked out the window and SWAT cars, cop cars, everything just everywhere, guns drawn.
Stephen and Nancy had been married for just several years, even posting photos of themselves in happier times.
Florida Congressman Jared Moskowitz posting on X to say he was just with her Saturday, calling her a fighter and sharing that she was preparing to announce her run for Congress. But it is her family now bearing the weight of her loss, writing in part, while so many knew her as a leader and advocate, we knew her as a sister, a daughter, and a friend. Her legacy lives on in the lives she touched.
There is only one suspect in the death of Nancy Metayer Bowen. His name is Stephen Bowen. He is 40 years old. He is of Jamaican heritage. He is a licensed radiologic technologist who worked at Delray Medical Center. He is the chief operating officer of a Hollywood-based nonprofit called Men of St. Luke, an organization that describes itself as focused on creating a community for fellowship and discipleship among men who want to live life successfully in the eyes of God. He is also Nancy's husband, and as of April 2nd, 2026, he is sitting in the Broward County, Maine jail, charged with premeditated first-degree murder and tampering with or fabricating physical evidence. He is being held without bond.
quick hearing in court today, Stephen Bowen was denied bond after being accused of killing his wife. And today, her family is remembering her as an advocate and a leader.
Mr. Bowen, good morning, sir.
Stephen Bowen was the first person on the docket in bond court. Bowen is charged with premeditated murder and tampering with fabricated evidence.
Now here is where this story gets complicated. Because on paper, Stephen Bowen looked like everything a husband should be. He had a career. He had a purpose, a medical job by day, Christian ministry by night. He had no violent criminal history. His record was limited to a dismissed cannabis possession charge from 2009 and a handful of traffic violations. Nothing that would make you look twice. Nothing that would make you worry. And the couple's public face matched that image completely. Nancy posted about Stephen constantly. In September 2024, she wrote about living in her purpose, feeling anchored by the love of her incredible husband. In November 2024, for their second anniversary, she posted a photo of the two of them standing in front of the Coral Springs City Hall seal. She called him amazing. She wrote about love, growth, and building a beautiful life together. In November 2025, for their third anniversary, Stephen posted a photo from their wedding. He wrote about 3 years of building, dreaming, and loving each other through everything. That post went up just 4 months before he allegedly shot her 3 times in their bedroom. People who knew the couple socially said the same thing over and over. No red flags, no visible tension, no warning signs that anyone could point to. Democratic State Representative Marie Paul Woodson, a close friend of Nancy's, told the Miami Herald that she and her husband had seen the couple at multiple events. They had sat together. They had talked. She said she never had a clue that something like this could have happened. That is what makes this case so disturbing. Not just the violence, but the invisibility of whatever was building toward it. Because something was building, even if no one outside those walls could see it. Now look closer at Stephen Bowen, not the profile he presented to the world, but the details hiding just beneath it. His Instagram account at Kingsby85 told a particular story. Out of all his public posts, 7 featured him with Nancy, but scattered throughout were something else. Videos of himself at shooting ranges, a boar hunt with a rifle, tactical firearms content. A man comfortable with weapons, documenting that comfort online for years. And pinned at the top of his profile, his self-description in 3 words. God, husband, armed. Not community, not healer, not servant. Armed, right there between his faith and his marriage. He was also a Freemason, a member of a lodge connected to Men of St. Luke, which had originally registered under the name the Most Worshipful Union Grand Lodge of Florida, St. Luke Lodge 530. The man he handed the gun bag to on the day of his arrest, Leslie Washington Jr., was a fellow Mason. Stephen had contacted him that morning under the pretense of needing to discuss an upcoming lodge meeting. Washington had no idea what had actually happened the night before. He had no idea what was in the bag. So this was the plan. Confess to his uncle, hand the murder weapon to a fellow Freemason who had no reason to ask questions, and then try to get himself to an attorney before law enforcement closed in. He even told his uncle he had a lawyer meeting in 40 minutes. He left Owen Small's house on his own before police could take him anywhere. It almost worked. Now, the question every person following this case has been asking since April 1st is this: why? And the honest answer, the only answer on record, comes from Stephen Bowen's own mouth, relayed through his uncle to investigators. 4 words placed in quotation marks in the affidavit. Couldn't take it anymore. That's it, that's all he gave. No specific grievance. No named argument. No explanation for what he meant by it or what it was that he could no longer carry. Just that phrase offered up as if it explains something. It doesn't. It raises more questions than it answers. What couldn't he take? Was it the weight of watching his wife's star keep rising while he stood in the background? Was it the grief that had been pouring into their household since December? A grief that had changed Nancy, that had changed everything, that had perhaps changed the dynamic between them in ways that no one outside could measure. Was it pressure, resentment, something she said, something she was about to do? No one knows. Authorities have not publicly identified a motive beyond that statement. There is no prior domestic violence report on file, at least none that's been made public. The Coral Springs Police Department denied the Miami Herald's public records request for prior calls for service at the home, citing the active investigation. Whatever happened inside that marriage was kept inside those walls. But here is what we do know. Nancy Metayer Bowen was a woman whose life was accelerating. She had been named vice chair of Haitian-American voter engagement for the Florida Democratic Party back in March 2025. She had survived the grief of losing her baby brother just 3.5 months before her death, and still she kept showing up, still working, still building. She was one day away from announcing a congressional run. Her career was the loudest thing in the room. And on the bed where she was found, investigators discovered a pillow with burn marks and string tied around it, fashioned, according to the affidavit, as a makeshift silencer. That pillow is the detail that stays with you, because panic attacks don't lead to makeshift silencers. Impulse doesn't produce that kind of preparation. Someone fashioned that pillow before they pulled the trigger. That takes time. That takes planning. That takes a decision made somewhere earlier in the evening, maybe earlier than that. Prosecutors charged this as premeditated murder for a reason. He had thought about this, he had prepared for this, and then he did it, and then he slept. The motive remains officially unknown, but the method tells a story that 4 words never could. On the evening of Friday, April 3, 2026, just 3 days after Nancy Metayer Bowen was killed in her own bedroom, hundreds of people gathered on the front lawn of Coral Springs City Hall. They wore orange and green, her colors, the colors of Florida A&M where she studied and grew and became who she was. They carried white candles. They stood shoulder to shoulder in the South Florida heat, and they stayed. Dozens of speakers took the microphone, state legislators, Broward County officials, close friends, and mentees. The service was translated into Creole. And before the night was over, Rep. Jared Moscovitz said the thing that cut through everything else. Nancy would have won that race. Past tense, would have. 4 words carrying the weight of everything that was stolen, not just a life, but a future, a seat, a voice that tens of thousands of people had been counting on. He and Rep. Debbie Wasserman Schultz flew a flag over the Capitol in her honor. The city flag at City Hall flew at half-staff.
Lauren, there was a common call to action tonight. City leaders and friends are asking anyone who knew her to live like Nancy. Through grief and tears, friends of Nancy Metayer Bowen shined a light on her legacy. They say it's one of compassion, exemplified by the number of people who showed up tonight.
It means a lot. It means to show you who Nancy was to so many of us.
The Metayer family had a front row seat to the outpouring of love, which came with a flood of emotion.
Grieve how you gotta grieve.
Her family has been dealing with this pain for days. But those who gathered tonight want to remember her life, not her death. Metayer Bowen was not only a leader, but a mentor.
Nancy showed me what it truly means to advocate, not to speak but to stand, and not to care but to also act.
For those already in office, they reflected on what could have been, presenting her family with a flag flown at the Capitol.
Nancy was always for the people. She never postured. This was never about her. It was about her community.
As the first Black and Haitian American woman on the city commission, her presence and now absence is felt countywide.
I would like to tell you thank you for your daughter.
As the memories flashed by, her community is grieving its light.
And 20 miles away, in a cell at the Broward County Main Jail, Stephen Bowen sat silent. No public statement, no trial date, charged with premeditated first-degree murder and tampering with or fabricating physical evidence, held without bond. That is where things stood. Then came another twist. On Monday, April 6th, just 5 days after his arrest, the Broward County Public Defender's Office filed a motion asking the court to remove them from his case entirely. The reason? Multiple members of their office had personal and professional relationships with Nancy Metayer Bowen. They said representing the man accused of killing her would create a conflict of interest so deep it would violate his right to a fair trial. There is something almost poetic about that. The system built to defend him cannot defend him without betraying her memory. And court documents revealed something else. Stephen Bowen has been declared indigent. He cannot afford his own lawyer. So as of today, April 8, 2026, the man charged with killing the vice mayor of Coral Springs is sitting in a cell without an attorney, waiting for the court to figure out who will represent him next. But here is the detail this story keeps coming back to. The one that says something about the kind of man Stephen Bowen is and the kind of plan he had. When he left that house on the morning of April 1st, he was not running blind. He had a fellow Mason in plantation to take the gun, a man who, by his own account to investigators, had no idea what Bowen had done the night before. He had a lawyer meeting lined up. He had misleading texts already sent to the very people trying to reach his wife. Every move that morning was calculated. The only thing he did not calculate was his own uncle. Owen Small did not protect him. Owen Small called 911. The man Stephen Bowen went to for help was the man who brought the walls down. And there is something in that worth sitting with. Because in the end, it was family, the same thing Stephen Bowen allegedly destroyed, that made sure he did not disappear. The case is 1 week old. There will be hearings. There will be a trial. There will be a moment when a courtroom forces everything that happened inside that marriage into the open. That day is coming. But the question that will outlast the verdict, the one no courtroom can fully answer, is this. How does this happen to someone so visible, so accomplished, so surrounded by people who loved her and showed up for her, who described her at her own vigil as a legend, a light, a woman who made you feel like you mattered? The answer is uncomfortable. Domestic violence does not care about titles or community standing or social media tributes. It lives in the silence between two people that no one else is permitted to enter. It does not announce itself. It does not leave a paper trail. And too often, by the time anyone outside those walls understands what was happening, there is nothing left to do but grieve. If something in your relationship feels wrong, not dramatic, not obvious, just quietly, persistently wrong, please reach out. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day. Call or text 1-800-799-7233. It is free and it is confidential. Nancy Metayer Bowen deserved better than the ending she got. Her family deserves justice. And the Coral Springs City Commission has an empty seat that no one quite knows how to fill. Because the woman who held it was, by every account, irreplaceable.